NATO's recent warning that it could consider a preemptive strike against Russia has triggered a fiery and immediate response from Moscow, sharply raising concerns about further escalation between the two sides. Russia has said that the talk of a NATO preemptive strike clearly shows the Western military bloc is seeking an escalation, rather than easing tensions or pursuing genuine de-escalation. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova condemned the remark as absolutely irresponsible, calling it a dangerous step that pushes both sides closer to a direct military confrontation. Russia's foreign ministry also accused NATO of trying to deliberately disrupt ongoing efforts to advance a peace process over the war in Ukraine, framing the alliance's rhetoric as a setback for diplomacy. Zakharova warned that NATO's growing anti-Russian hysteria is fueling a self-perpetuating cycle of confrontation, making it harder to contain risks and increasing the chance of a serious clash. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said, and I quote, "We regard Mr. Cavo Dragone's remarks about the possibility of preemptive strikes against Russia as an extremely irresponsible step, demonstrating the alliance's willingness to further escalate the situation. These statements should be viewed as a deliberate attempt to undermine ongoing efforts aimed at resolving the Ukrainian crisis. Those who allow themselves such rhetoric must clearly understand the risks and potential consequences that would arise, including for the alliance's own member states. NATO has long ceased to conceal its true goals and intentions. Nevertheless, the bloc's leadership continues to level baseless accusations against Russia, alleging belligerent nuclear rhetoric, intimidation, and so-called hybrid attacks, without presenting a single piece of evidence of our involvement. Against the backdrop of NATO's intensifying anti-Russia hysteria and persistent fearmongering about an imminent attack by Russia on its member states, such statements do not simply fuel tensions but seriously aggravate the existing confrontation. Brussels likes to repeat the mantra of the alliance's purely defensive nature. Yet Mr. Cavo Dragone's own words about the admissibility of preemptive strikes effectively unravel this myth." Unquote. Russia's latest warning came after NATO's Admiral Giuseppe Cavo Dragone urged the alliance to adopt a more aggressive approach in dealing with Moscow's activities, signaling a shift in thinking at the military's top level. Dragone suggested in an interview, cited by the Financial Times, that even a so-called preemptive strike could in some cases be viewed as a form of defensive action, pushing the boundaries of how NATO traditionally defines its responses. He said NATO is now considering a more proactive posture toward Russia's hybrid warfare campaign, rather than simply reacting after the fact to each new incident or provocation. These hybrid attacks across Europe have included suspected sabotage of undersea cables and other critical infrastructure, as well as waves of cyber attacks targeting governments, networks, and key services. Admiral Giuseppe Cavo Dragone had said, and I quote, "We are studying everything. On cyber, we are kind of reactive. Being more aggressive or being proactive instead of reactive is something that we are thinking about. A preemptive strike could be considered a defensive action, but it is further away from our normal way of thinking and behavior. Being more aggressive compared with the aggressivity of our counterpart could be an option. The issues are legal framework, jurisdictional framework. Who is going to do this? NATO and its members have much more limits than our counterpart because of ethics, because of law, because of jurisdiction. It is an issue. I don't want to say it's a loser position, but it is a harder position than our counterparts." Unquote. Russia said the NATO official statement exposes what it calls the myth that the alliance is a purely defensive military bloc, arguing that such remarks reveal offensive intentions behind its strategy. Moscow alleges that the Western military alliance has not been hiding its goals and intentions for some time, claiming that NATO's recent rhetoric and actions clearly signal a willingness to escalate rather than de-escalate tensions. The heightened tension comes at a time when Moscow alleges there has been a sharp increase in so-called anti-Russia rhetoric across Europe, adding further strain to already fraught relations. Russian state media claims that political leaders in the European Union are using this tough rhetoric as a way to justify massive new military expenditures to their own publics. This war of words is unfolding as the EU is reportedly seeking around €800 billion under proposed Rearm Europe package aimed at large-scale military expansion and defense investment. At the same time, NATO has been urging its member states to push their total military spending up toward 5% of GDP, arguing that higher defense outlays are needed to meet growing security threats. Russia, for its part, has repeatedly stated that it has no intention of attacking any NATO country, portraying its stance as defensive despite the ongoing confrontation. However, Moscow has also warned that any real strike against Russian territory or forces would trigger what it calls a harsh and forceful response, underscoring the risks of escalation.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.